Hi, folks. You're with the Tacitus Debate, your back channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. I should call this radio live stream, given there's no images there. You may be wondering where I've been for a few days, but I was sin binned by YouTube for making quite an oblique reference questioning a certain ballot counting event in 2020. And apparently you can't do that, or at least they say that I couldn't do it. So that was it. You get a strike. Hey, now if you want to ask other questions from 2016, that's fine. You're allowed to do that. Just not 2020. So anyway, the purpose or the subject of this essay is I've been seeing a run of adverts online and elsewhere recently where they're heavily promoting this idea of younger white woman, say under the age of 30, and with a very plain white woman, and her boyfriend, husband, partner, whatever, is a black guy. Now, the way they're positioning this, it's a very plain white woman. So we're talking red hair, freckles, short, pretty dumpy, sort of overweight. But she's with a black guy who is incredibly photogenic. The guy can't work because he'd never have got out of the gym because he's just so buff and so fit. Wearing, designer label, perfectly fitting clothes, a sophisticated, suave dude. I've done a huge amount of travel all across the States and elsewhere, and through countries with lots of black people. And I would think, looking at the presentation of this guy, that 1 in every 300 or 400 black males would look like this. You can get the sort of the super fit ones, but you can't, they're certainly not sophisticated or suave or photogenic like this. So this guy had the lot. Smart, erudite, photogenic, immaculately presented, and so on and so forth. You just don't come across. You don't come across those people in, much at all. But certainly amongst the black population, it would be rare indeed. And yet, this is the man that these very plain white girls seem to be landing. Now, they're really pushing this quite hard. And when the globalists want to undermine Western civilization, where do they go first? Where's the weakest link, the easiest link? It's young women. That will always be the easiest thing. It doesn't matter. Climate change, we're surrounded by Nazis everywhere. This idea of mass migration. You look at any climate change protest, demonstration. The main organisers and agitators are often men, but the mass of students that they can whistle up at the drop of a hat, they're nearly all women. And the ones that aren't women are gay or that sort of thing. So they can really pull a crowd together very quickly. And don't sell the globalists short here. At most of the universities, certainly in Australia, they have special, what they call student liaison officers, but in reality, they're globalists paid and controlled, NGO, globalists paid and controlled professional agitators. So their job is to whistle up a university crowd of kids real quick, on demand. Hey, we need 1,000 kids to run around with placards tomorrow to protest climate change or protest, we want more mass migration of black lesbians. So, they can just whistle up a crowd and some of these guys, they're being paid a couple of $100,000 a year for a 3-day-a-week job. I mean, they're paid more than some fairly senior engineers that are building bridges and roads, and they're just paid so they're agitators, so they can pull a crowd together. But this is where the globalists go if they want an anti-Western society crowd. All they've got to do is go to the younger women, who are disappointed with their life. Maybe they're looking down the road and seeing huge student debt and a life of working at the at the coffee shop, or at the some retail job, some shitty retail job at the grocery store or something like that. And they're looking down there and thinking, holy fuck, my life is fucked. I've got no man. I'm not going to be able to afford anything. I'm living in my parents' basement. I've got student debt coming out of my ass. I've got this shitty job. They've got zero, and so they're these are people who are very disgruntled with things. Now, if they stopped and thought about it, they'd know that their livelihood and their future and any sort of promise of future has been stolen from them by the globalists. But they're not that; they're too dumb to work that out. So they're willing participants. Now, if you think about it, Western women are the richest, most pampered, most looked after women on the planet and in human history, and yet they so willingly say, no, we're oppressed. No, we're oppressed. We're being crushed by all these Nazis, by Hitler. And so they go to all these demonstrations, and they're willing disciples. They gag to participate in their own destruction and destruction of their society. Now, you look at when the globalists target them through the advertising and say, look, these white guys might not take a whole lot of interest in you, overweight girl with red hair and a shitty attitude. But look at this advert. Look at all these hot black guys. Look at these hot black guys you can have. What do you reckon about a bit more mass immigration, eh? Black immigration. What do you reckon? Yeah, hey! And so anyone that doesn't want that must be Hitler. And so that's it. The girls are sort of sold the idea of mass immigration because of all these super sophisticated, super photogenic, super fit black guys who are going to come along, who, even though they spend all day in the gym, they still seem to have shitloads of money to buy designer label clothes. So again, the girls aren't really thinking about this, and they're going down like a sack of shit every time they see these things, and they're really targeting it. The targeting is quite tight. One of the among the adverts certainly that I've seen is like, you got a baby coming, hey. And then there's, again, the very plain white girl with the very photogenic black guy, and or it could be pregnancy testing or anything like that. But it's really focusing on this partner procreation, and even to the point where black guy with the black kid and the white woman who's married him. Obviously, it's a full black kid. It's not a half black or anything like that. So they're also trying to subliminally encourage white women to excuse me, consort with black guys who've already got black children. So now, again, it doesn't matter. It could be climate change. It could be mass migration. But every element that the globalists are using to crush and destroy, undermine Western society, Western civilization, they're finding real support from Western women. Again, climate change, and the list goes on. And if you look at all the demonstrations, certainly the ones that I've seen, or even the photographs online or video online, you'll find that it's nearly all women now. Again, the agitators are male, or tend to be mostly, but the lower level organisers and the placard waving foot crowd, they're nearly all women. In fact, if you took out the women and the gay guys, you'd hardly have anybody turning up. And again, if you look at things like BLM and Antifa writing, how many women turn up for that? Now, I've spoken to some of the women who are very much or claim to be very much in favour of things like the mass migration, or anyone should be allowed to come to the West, until you say, well, what are you prepared to give up? What are you prepared to give up in order to make room for these people? Will you give up your place at university? Why don't you give up your job? Why don't you give up your basement, at your parents' house? Well, why don't you give up something to help these people? Honour, Oh, no, 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 no. Someone else has to give things up. I shouldn't have to give things up, they'll say. So it's not a very sincere supporter of these things. They seem to relish and salivate over the thought that the Western society is being crushed and removed and so on, because it, as they see it, they're the victims being oppressed by those, Hitler, and without thinking it through and the impact of what they're supporting and thinking. But the view is so narrow that they think that the complete destruction of Western society and Western civilization must in itself be a good. It's just good. Why is it good? Well, hey, I don't fucking know. It's just good because it'll get rid of Hitler and Nazis. And so whatever replaces it, doesn't matter what it is, whatever replaces it must be an improvement. Therefore, let's just destroy what's here. And anything that comes along afterwards must be better. And again, it's the equality through the relative status quo rather than the absolute. So if I can make all the rich people poor as me, then I have achieved equality. I'm equal. But as long as they have something that I don't, then I'm not equal, and therefore I am oppressed. And it's quite Marxist in its structure. But that seems to be the view. I mean, there are some young boys that say in like third or fourth year high school who would also go along with that, but they grow out of it fairly quickly. Not all of them, of course, but many of them do. As soon as they have to face responsibility and have to make decisions for which they are responsible, those sorts of things, then they start to, okay, this isn't really working. Why are we destroying ourselves? So they'll, but girls aren't having that responsibility, or much later, and so the light doesn't go on until probably 40s. And even then, given the amount of jobs that are being given to minorities who, on the basis of quotas and affirmative action, that sort of thing, these people are gifted jobs, gifted salaries, gifted a whole range of gifted university degrees. So they may never have to face any responsibility or suffer consequences for their actions and their life choices. They're mostly shielded from that. So without that concept of responsibility and consequences, they don't mature sufficiently to realise how a destruction of Western society will achieve absolutely nothing for anybody. It'll play completely into the hands of the globalists, but achieve nothing for the Western citizenry. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.